Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is a weekly webinar where we talk about things to do with the CI Tools. This week we're going to be having a look at the Cabinets tool. We've just been working through a series of looking at all of our tools from the point of view of someone who hasn't used them before. So if that's you, then you're at the right place. Before we start, I'm going to be using ArchiCAD 28 today, but most of the functionality that you see is also available in 27 and 26 as well. So if you're using a slightly older version, the interface that you see and everything like that will look roughly the same as what you see here, if not exactly the same. If you have any questions as we go through the session today, just enter those in the chat panel in either YouTube or Vimeo, wherever you're watching this, and I will check on those towards the end and see if there's anything that I can answer while we're live. If you think of anything later on or just have anything else that you want to ask which isn't maybe relevant to what we're looking at today, you can always email that through to our support desk on nz.support@centralinnovation.com. And for that as well, also if you have any ideas for future webinar topics you'd like to see covered here, send those through to there as well, because that's how I figure out what I should show for these webinars. So yeah, if you have anything in particular about the tools that you'd like to see, send us through an email there and let me know, and I'll cover those in a future version. Alright, that's all of the housekeeping out of the way, I think, so let's jump into the Cabinets tool. So as I say, we're going to look at this from the point of view of someone who hasn't used it before. So to start off with, we will look at what the Cabinet tool actually is and why you might want to use it. So the Cabinets tool follows the same, a similar philosophy as the Doors and Windows tool does, which we've talked about in over the last couple of weeks, with the idea being that it allows you to create essentially whatever design you need to for your cabinet using a single object. So it has one single object which is very powerful and flexible to allow you to create various different kinds of cabinets. There's actually multiple objects, but they're for slightly different things. But the main gist of the cabinet is that you can do all of it inside of a single unit. So it means you can design multiple parts of your cabinetry using a single object. So for instance, in this kitchen here, each sort of side can be a single cabinet that contains all of the parts that are in there, rather than placing a bunch of different pieces. It also means that, again, similarly to the Doors and Windows tool, that you don't have to make a design decision about your cabinetry before you actually place a cabinet. You can place the cabinet object as it is. You don't have to choose what type of cabinet you want it to be or what is in the cabinet, whether it be drawers or doors or open shelves or whatever. You can make all of those changes after the fact and just place something with the default settings to begin with. You can also change your mind at any point and not have to switch to a different object or anything. Just make the change to the different type that you want and go ahead from there. So we'll look at how we can do that once we place them down as well. So yeah, what the Cabinet tool is aimed for is flexibility and powerful settings to allow you to do whatever you like with the cabinet, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started by placing a cabinet. So I'm just going to delete this one here and we're going to create a new one. The first thing you'll need to do to use the Cabinet tool is that the Cabinet tool has its own toolbox icon here. You can see it's a little view of a cabinet there. And that won't be there by default in ArchiCAD because it's not one of the default tools, so you'll need to add it. So there's two ways that you can add it. The easiest way is to apply the CI Tools work environment. So to do that, just go to your options menu, work environment, apply profile, and choose CI Tools profile at whatever version you're in, and that will apply the Cabinet tool to your toolbox automatically. If you don't want to do that, maybe you don't have the work environment installed, it's part of the CI Tools installer, or maybe you just prefer to modify things yourself so that you know what's going on. Instead, go to work environment and then go down to Toolbox here. You'll see a list of all of the tools on the left here. If you scroll down to about 3/4 of the way down, oh actually, no, it's below the MEP stuff now. So right down at the bottom there, you'll see the CI tools. Tools here, we've got detail elements and that sort of thing. And cabinet is what you're looking for. Find that. And then on the right, choose where you want to put it. So for us, we put it into the design block just after the electrical tool, which is also ours, which is after the lamp tool. So if you go to design here, find the lamp, we can select our cabinet here and press add selected. It's not going to work for me because I already have it there. But once it moves across to the right, you can then grab the arrows to the left of it and move it to whatever position you want. And that will give you the cabinet tool. So you can do it either way there. And then to start working with the cabinets, we just double click on the cabinet tool. And that will take us to the cabinet objects that are available in the library that will be installed. So you'll need to make sure that you have, if you're an ArchiCAD 28 and you're working in a new project, you'll need to make sure that you have the CI Tools lib packs loaded. And we're using the cabinets lib pack obviously here, and this gives us a handful of objects. So the main cabinet object we're going to be working with is CI cabinet. The cabinet corner, 2 different types of those just handle the 2 different types of corner, whether it's an angled corner or an internal corner. And the polygon option works the same way as the regular cabinet, but allows you to adjust the shape of the outside of it, which you can see in 3D there. So we can put a sort of a slanted top or something like that. So if you ever need to, say, make a cabinet to fit under a set of stairs or something like that, this is a good option to use. But otherwise, apart from the shape changes, it works in the same way as the CI cabinet does, as do the other 2. So that's primarily what we're going to be looking at today. We've also got a CI benchtop for adding a benchtop on top of your cabinets if you want one of those, and the Migration Legacy library, which contains all of our old cabinet objects. So if you have projects if you have projects that you've migrated from considerably older versions, these will be using the deprecated cabinet objects that are in here. They will stay working. We don't recommend using them to create new things, obviously. We deprecated them for a reason, but those are there for migration purposes should you need those. But if you're starting out new using the cabinet tool, don't use these ones. Go up to the cabinets folder and use the CI cabinet, or whichever one works for what you need. So starting with the CI cabinet, what we're going to do is we're going to not look at any settings at all, and we're going to place it down using the default settings. So I'll just put it here. That places a single cabinet, which you can see has an opening door on it. Let's move it into place by dragging it over here. And then we're going to stretch it out to the size that we want by grabbing this node here and stretching it out to the width that we want. So let's say dimension, let's say 2100. Okay, so that's stretched it out to that width, and you can see that it's automatically repeated our units across there. So rather than stretching the one that's there, it's added in additional units at the size that the tool is preset to use, and then with the remaining space that's left after that, it puts in a squished sort of smaller cabinet that fits in there. You can control the way that this works as well. So if this isn't what you would want it to do when you stretch it, you can change the way that behaves as well. So don't worry if that's not what you like. You may also see when I stretched it out, we also have purple hotspots showing on the divisions between each unit, as well as on the edges of the partitions, and you can use those to manually adjust those as well. So if you want the spacing to be different, you can move the partition between the two like this, or you can grab hold of the actual side here and move that as well. So there's still one unit. The door still covers the whole lot, but if you want the actual module, which is what we call these individual parts, to be smaller, you can do that there as well. I'm going to leave it as it is here for now though, and we'll jump in and see how we can control what our cabinet is actually doing. So come in here and we're going to go to our cabinet settings, and this is where we'll do most of the changes we're going to do. Let's resize that. So starting with configuration, this is the sort of the big stuff settings. So this is the overall size of the cabinet, the colors of the surface and that sort of thing, and how the construction works. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go through all of them. But you can see we've got the width and height and that sort of thing. You can choose to lock the carcass height, the cabinet height, or the plinth height, so that when you resize the height of the cabinet, this defines which part of it will be resized when you do that. And then we can choose our face option. So frameless is the default, but we can go with half or full inset, half or full overlay rather, or inset. We can choose to have just the fronts or include a back as well, and we can choose how we want the legs to work as well. So if there should be a plinth present, if we should just have the walls extending down, if we just want to inset from the cabinet, or if we don't want to do anything at all and it should just be a float-in cabinet, which is useful for overhead cabinets and that sort of thing. This one's going to be sitting on the floor, so these settings are fine for us. And then we will leave these as the default white options and black for the legs, which is fine. Moving into the more detailed settings for the configuration, we can control the face settings. So again, plenty of options here. They roughly make sense based on what you're looking at in the diagrams here. So you can see the different gaps can be set here. They're all 4 by default, but you can set those to whatever you want. Going into carcass, the same again. We can just define the dimensions that are shown in the diagram, and the plinth and legs is the same as well. So we've got it set to adjustable legs. We can define the size of those legs and also the set out of the various parts of the leg, and also where they're positioned in relation to the actual cabinet itself. So that configuration settings covers the sort of the structure of the cabinet itself. Then we've got the back and end panels, which does exactly what it sounds like it would do. If you want to have a panel on the back or on the ends, you can include those. You can choose where you want those to be placed. And then we get to modules, which is where we can do the real work of setting out what is in our cabinet. So everything at the moment is an opening door. You can see in my 3D view here that they're all labeled with a D to indicate that they have a door on them, and you can see the dashed opening pivot lines on them as well to indicate that they are opening doors. So at the moment we have 4 of what we call modules, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 equally sized and 1 small one. And you can see in our modules view here that we get the same as well. So this is an elevation view of what our cabinet is currently configured as. We can go through and select parts of these and change the settings. So you can see at the moment with all of the ones I select, the width is 600, apart from the last one where the width is whatever is left over. In this case, it's 300. You'll also notice that we can't adjust the width on this one. And the reason for that is because we are currently set to measure from the left. So we're measuring from the left edge of the cabinet. And so the furthest right module will always be grayed out because it will just be whatever fits into the available space that's left over. In our case, it's 300. If you did want to adjust this one, the easiest way to do that is to just say that you want to measure from the right instead. Then you can adjust this one, but if I go to the furthest left one, you'll see I can't adjust that one anymore. So that's why that is happening, and we're just choosing where we're measuring from. I'll set that back there, and then the same works for the heights as well. So we can choose to adjust from the top or from the base. At the moment we only have 1 unit, so the height doesn't do anything, it's grayed out because they are all full height. But if I were to subdivide any of those, that will become available as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to choose the second cabinet in here, and we've got our split controls here, which will allow us to split a module into more than 1 module. So these are the horizontal modules, and these are the vertical ones, vertically placed, which is horizontal partitions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to have it cut in 2, and I'll click this button here, and that will run the split that I've told it to. So you can now see that I have 2 modules on the piece that I have selected here, and you can see that it's also 2 selectable modules as well. And now we can adjust the heights of those if we wanted to as well. So if we want to make the top module smaller, we can come in here and say 200. It will do that, and then the bottom one is set to whatever the remainder is again, 550 in this case. And again, we could swap this around to measure from the base instead, in which case we can define the bottom unit, but we can't divide in the top one because it's just whatever's left over. So using those controls, you can build out the module set out that you need. You can also go back on any of these as well. So if we come in here and say that we want to split this one into two, and then we later decide we actually don't want to do that, we can use the merge options, which are the final row here. So I can select this unit here, and I can say merge this with the one to the left of it by removing the left side divider, and that will just do that, and essentially in this case gives us back what we had before. We can also do that with this one and go down to just 3 units as well if we wanted to, and then if we decide that actually we do want to have separations there but we want them bigger, we can resplit it by splitting in 2 again. So now we have 2 wider units than the 2 that we had before, which were 300s before. Now we've got 2 450s instead. So you can build it up to the setup that you want here, and then we can also control what is in them by moving across here. So at the moment we are looking at the dimensions part of the module setting. We can move across now to the type, which lets us define what's actually in the part that we're looking at. So at the moment they're all set to door left, which we saw earlier. They were all showing a door on them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this one here and this one here, and I'm going to say that actually I'll just select one of them, and I'll say this one's open shelves, and then I'll select the one on the far right, and I'll say that this one is a single slide out bin, and then over on the far left, this one here will be where's the, I thought we had a double door in there. No, we don't. Let's make this one a stack of drawers then. So we've got a drawer stack there, and then the last one in the middle here, let's make this one a tamper door, and then the bottom one will continue to be a door left as before. So you can see those changes in 3D now. You can see our drawer stack there. You can see our tamper door in the top here. The open shelves here, we don't have any shelves placed in it yet. We'll do that later, but it's an open unit now that we can add shelves to, and then our bin at the end. So that lets us define what's going on with each of the parts here. Then moving along again, we can control the front. So that is to say, in most cases it's a door, but with things like drawers and that sort of thing, obviously it's not a door, so we just call them fronts. Everything has a flat panel by default, but again we can control that here. So I'm going to choose my opening door, so the bottom part over here, and instead of choosing a flat panel, I'm going to say that this one has a glass door. And you'll see that it makes that change right away. So you can see the glass door there. We can also go across to the last one, the bins here, and we can select that and say this one should be a shaker style panel. That one's a little bit more difficult to see, but you can see the inset frame there. And you can control all of these things. So all of the types we looked at just before, all of the fronts that we're looking at now, we can further customize all of these settings, which I'll look at in a moment as well. But the last thing that we want to look at here is the handles, which does exactly what it sounds like it would do. So this lets us define the handles. So let's say we have our bin, slide out bin selected at the moment. We'll say that we do want to stick with a recessed, but we've got 2 of them at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that actually we want to have a single centered recessed handle, and that does that. So you can see that there. Then we can go over to our drawer stack over on the left here, and we'll say actually this one should be a D-pull. And again, there should only be one of those, and we'll put those centered instead. So those are centered in the drawer, and a single D-pull. And again, we can customize the way that the D-pulls work as well, but there's plenty of options for the way that these will work. And then lastly, we'll set this one here to be let's have a nice shell there, and we'll put this one on the side vertically. There we go, so we've got that running up and down the side there. So that lets us control the handles for them. So we've got dimensions first to control the set out of the actual modules. Type, which lets us control what function each module is performing. Fronts, which lets us find the doors or the front of the drawers or anything like that, and handles, which lets us to find the handles that are attached to them. Now, as I said, we can customize any of these as well as we would like. So if I select the one on the left here, which is a drawer stack, I can hit this button here to go into edit the individual parts. So I'm going to select the drawer stack from here, and this is where we can define how drawer stacks work in our cabinet. So we've got the number of drawers selected here, as well as the set out of the drawers themselves. So the top is 120, 2, 3, and 4 are 120, and then the base is 120 as well. Now, in our case, you can see that the base is actually bigger than 120, and the reason for that is just because the base of a drawer stack will always just be the size of whatever space is left. So rather than stopping and having a vacuum underneath it, it will just expand out to whatever space is left at the bottom. So that's why we're seeing that bottom one is larger there. We can also define what the label says. So dr dot is what we have there, and you can see that on the view, dr. So you can change the way the labels work here as well. And then over on the right, we can control the surfaces of that type, as well as all of the dimensions as shown here. So we could modify this drawer stack to work however we wanted to. We could go through and we could say, actually, we only want 3 drawers, and we want them to be larger. So we can say this is 200 actually, and then the second one is 250 for some reason, and the third one again is just going to expand to whatever space is left, so that's fine. So we can make those changes, and that will be applied to the module as it is in our view here. So you can see the 3 drawers on the left instead of 5 now. So we can do that with all of these as well. So if I just go through quickly and have a look at the others, you can see the bin that we had on the side there. We can control how that works. If we were using an oven, we can control the sizing for that and the surfaces. I won't go through all of these, but we also had a tambour door in there, so we can control how that works as well. In this case, it's just a setting for the fact that it's a tambour door, and we can define the label there. But we can also do the same thing for the fronts and the handles as well. So if I go to fronts, you'll see that we have shaker, glass, and flat panel available, which are the 3 that you saw when I was selecting them earlier. And we can change the way those work as well. So if I modify the shaker one, we can say that actually this one should still be framed, but we'll give it a wavy top and base so that it's easy to spot there. And we'll say that the panel is also TNG as well, so you can see that there. And then the panel can be, let's go with one of these guys, just so that you can spot it easily. And now if I go back to my module view, you'll see that the bin unit that we had at the end, which is set to use the shaker front, that one is showing in our 3D view there. So it makes it nice and easy to control how these all work. You can also add new ones as well. So if there's nothing in there that covers what you want, or if you want to have 2 different styles of shaker, for instance, or something. So let's say that we have a shaker that we want to use here, but we want to have a different one on the top middle panel here as well. So we can set those both to shaker. We can go in here and we can say, actually, I want to create a new front here. It'll default to be called whatever you had, but with copy on it. So we'll call this shaker drawer, for instance. Can't remember if that was a drawer, but that's what we'll call it for now. We'll say this is just arched top, and it is yellow for some reason, and that this is larger. And now if we go back to modules, you'll see that we have the option to add this new type here, and that will display on there as we need as well. So you can create these sort of on the fly as you go and apply them to things when needed. And the same goes for handles as well. So if we were to go into, let's go into the D-pulls, you can see how those work. So we get the options for what kind of shape we have, what the surface is on them, and the dimensions of how the actual D-pull itself is in our cabinet. And again, similarly too with the other types, we can create our own types by just making new copies of these. You could have 3 different depots for the 3 different sizings that you have, or different brands that you use, or something like that. You can create as many of these as you need to. So that covers off defining the configuration of our cabinet and changing the module setup. I'm just going to hit OK here to let it save those, and then we'll have a proper look at it in 3D. If you have any questions though, we're about to finish up, so just enter those in the chat panel now and I'll see if I can answer those online. But this is what we get in the end after making those changes. The very wide shell looks a little bit silly there, but otherwise it has done what we have told it to. So we've got our single recess handle at the top there. You can see our D-pulls on our drawers here. The glass front on this door here, and then the open shelving here as well. So what we'll cover off next time is how we can put in shelving and dividers, as well as putting space fillers in on these, and then we'll also look at applying a bench top and at the other type of cabinet objects that we had in there as well, just so that you know how those look and work also. Right, I'm just going to quickly pause my screen and then see if we've got any questions. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions today, so I think that will be it for today. Thanks for coming, everyone. As I said, if you do have any questions that you think of after the fact, or if you have any topics that you'd like to see covered in future webinars like this one, you can send those through to our support desk, nz.support@centralinnovation.com. That's also where you can go if you have any questions. So if you try out the tools and you have questions about them or anything like that, you can send those through to that email address as well, and that will go to our technical support team here. That's all from me for today though, so thanks for your time everyone, and I hope to catch you at the next one.